Oh, hey there. So, what do you do with all of this? Look around your workshop right now and tell me how much clutter you've got just lying around. I find that all of this slows down my productivity. I had one bench completely covered with bits and bobs. What we're going to do today is get all of this into one storage unit. It's no easy task because there's a lot of stuff here and this is still a small shed. So I need to make a storage unit that is efficient. I've got to use every bit of space in it and it can't take up a large footprint. So I've set myself a budget of 1 sheet of 12mm plywood and half a sheet of 18mm plywood. No drawer runners, and you're going to see this is a super simple build that anybody on any level with any amount of tools could do. I have to give full credit here to Hooked on Wood as a channel because it's their drawer design that I have taken into account. And one thing I'm going to do at the end that not many YouTubers do, I'm going to show you all of the mistakes that I've made and I'm going to show you how beginner friendly this is because not one of those mistakes will hold back what I'm intending on doing. I've got a design for a drawer that's not a drawer, but it is going to be the most useful drawer, not drawer, that you have in your entire workshop. So the first job we've got to do is got to head outside into the snow to cut the sides from the 3/4 inch plywood. And don't panic, I've got a plan drawn up, a really intricate plan. It may not look like much right now, but what I have cut is the sides, the top, a couple of brace pieces for the middle and the bottom, because I don't want to go with a full solid bottom, it's a waste of wood. I'm going to sand the edges, get them a little bit cleaner. Then we're going to lay out the dados for each one of the drawers. I've cut a piece of wood that is going to be the depth of my drawer minus the base, because I figure that's enough depth for the smallest drawer. Cut your dados so that the smaller drawers will fit in, but make a couple of bigger drawers double the size so that the whole thing can move around and be reorganized, moving the drawers up and down, depending on how you're going to use them. So wherever I put the dado, this then needs to sit at the top of it, and then the next dado can start at the top of that. So we just mark it out. And I'm just going to follow this all the way up. And then the brace piece, which is going to be 3/4 inch, is going to go across the middle here. You don't have to have this smack bang in the middle, it's just to stop the box from bowing outwards and the drawers not sitting flush within the dados and maybe slipping out. So you can have this anywhere within a sort of, I don't know, a 10-inch span in that middle area, and then you can rearrange your drawers accordingly around it. We've got a lot of space left on this top section. Just going to put a large dado, but this one is going to be something a little bit different that I'm going to pop in there. I'm just going to use my speed square against the piece of wood, hold it there, and then I'm going to follow the line all the way down. I'm going to route both of these at the same time using this straight edge. I'm going to put it against the bottom of each of the dado marks that I've made, and then I'm going to run the router along it. Now, the one thing that I do have to take into account here is the base of the router. So that's the next thing we need to do, is take all these lines down by the base of the router. There's a 37mm gap between the edge of this and the edge of the blade. So I'm just going to draw all of these down by 37mm, and then we can get them routed. I'm going to have to do this thinking about it in probably 2 goes. Once with a very shallow pass, and then the second one just to put a slightly heavier pass on it. Now with this, if you have a larger router than this trim router, you could probably do it in 1 pass. I'm only doing it in multiple passes to stop any burning or blunting the bit or chip out, just trying to get the best quality finish possible. So that's 1 to the final depth. As you can see, the drawer has a decent amount of depth to sit in there. But from now, let's route. Right, it's not clean, there's still some frayed bits, but each one has space for the drawer runners to go in. And because I did them side by side, I now have them matching. The next thing we need to do is to drill some pocket holes in the brace pieces and the lid, and then throw this thing together and see if we can then make the drawers afterwards. The reason I'm doing it that way round is because if I made the drawers first and measured everything up and there's any mistakes, it's not going to go together as well as if I measure from the box that I make, and then make the drawers to match this. Kickstand, clamp, bigger clamp. Yeah, the clamps here are really just to stop the wood swimming around when you put the pocket hole screws in, as they love to do. In hindsight, positioning the pocket holes so they don't go in where you've got the routed grooves will probably give this a little bit more strength, so learn from my mistake on that one. It's in place, it's solid. I haven't French cleated it to the back yet, and I haven't started making the drawers, as you can see, but fits well in there, and there is so much storage that I'm going to be able to put in this. I'm really quite excited. Right, next job on the list, we're going to make the drawers that go within the unit. Remember, you've got to make 2 double thickness. So we're going to measure, we're going to cut, and then we're going to start putting them together, and we're on our way. So while you are breaking down your sheet good here, for each of the drawers you've got a set height of the width and the back. So if you take your larger board and cut it into strips, each strip being for one of your drawer boxes, then you've got the best chance of the heights being all the same all the way around. There is a huge difference in the quality you'll get, especially if you're going across the veneer grain of these cheaper plywood sheets. If you raise your blade up so that it is just cutting through, not only is it safer, better for your sawhorses, but you'll actually get a better finish and nowhere near as much chip out on the top veneer of the plywood. As you can see from these 2 pieces, I didn't realise until it was too late, so learn from my mistake on that one if you can. As for the sides of the drawer, because you want these to be as uniform as possible per drawer, I just use this crosscut station from Craig, which gives me repeatability and square ends, most importantly, especially without a table saw. And I use one drawer piece that I cut a few mil too big, place it on top of the other side piece, and then cut them both so that you're just shaving a mil off the original one you cut. That way you get 2 as close to identical as possible, label them up, and then once you've given everything a very light sand on the edges, then it's time to take it inside and start constructing some drawer boxes. So once you've got your first base cut, I would really suggest bring it in and give it a test. Because if that doesn't fit, all of your other ones won't fit and it will be a complete waste of wood and cutting. Then, just grab one of your widths and make sure when you pop it in there, it doesn't come above the next drawer. If all of that works out, the rest we can deal with. We've got all of our sides, and the way we're going to put this together is a little bit different from what I would normally do on a drawer. So, it's a little bit more complicated, and it's going to involve the front of the drawer actually being part of the drawer instead of attached to the front of a drawer box. So the front will be part of the box. So we need to rebake the front of the box in 3 places. Once along the bottom, so it will receive the base of the drawer, and twice upright for the sides of the drawer. That way, I will be confident that with some glue and some nails, it will all hold together. And another thing I thought of doing was actually to just groove some 5mm rebates into each of the side pieces opposite each other, so that if we ever wanted to put drawer dividers in, that way I've got that as well that I can do. I think a dry fit's really important here because it actually showed me that I got my back of the drawer slightly too large on some of the drawers. So before any glue goes on, you can get it right. Then with the glue up here, I'm going to show you the hardest way first. This is trying to make the fronts of the drawer boxes look as clean as possible. I only use tacks on the back just to join the side pieces together. The rest is just glues and clamps. It's not going to go perfectly. The problem without using the nails is that you need lots and lots of clamps, and they all need to work together, so it becomes a real faff to get them all on. Whereas my second attempt, I decided to go with a few pin nails, and this is what it looks like. You can see there are a few nail holes in the front. What it meant I could do was not clamp the whole drawer together in different parts and try and get it right while the glue was going off all the time. I have decided that I'm going to put a few screws in the base into the side walls here. I want to give every chance that the base is not going to fall out if I decide to put something heavy in here. Once I've sanded the edge, I'm also going to bevel it slightly so it won't catch quite as easily in the runners because they're quite tight. We've got the drawers in place. They come out and they go back in pretty smoothly considering it's just a friction wood on wood fitting instead of a drawer runner. This is not a drawer, this is something quite clever that I'm really proud of. I'm going to show you at the end. But before then, we need to make handles for all of these. So let's do that first. What I decided to do here was just cut some pieces of sapele and then I just ran them over with two different bits in the router. The first one is kind of like a dome-shaped router piece that grooved out the back so I could get my fingers around them. And then the front piece was just a large round over bit. Now be super careful here. I think I took too much off at once and it did make it a little bit sketchy. I had to go through the front on this one because of the drawer inside, but that's fine. I'll put some dowels in that to tidy it up. And we could call this done. We can start putting stuff in it, but I don't know. I think we can possibly make it look a little bit nicer. Something a little bit like this. Now that is much, much better. What I've done is the sapele that I've got on the handles, I've taken that across to cover the grain on the side of the plywood so you can't see that when the drawers are closed. Very simply, I took a big piece of sapele and just sliced off the edges into thin strips with my circular saw and then glued them to the front, glued them to the side to make an angle, a right angle, and then took my plane and just planed it flush. Super simple. And then after that, I just hit it with some sandpaper, took it up through the grits from 100 to 240, and I then put another bit of sapele along the top here, as you can see, so things don't fall off down the back or anywhere else. It doesn't have to be done this way. You don't have to put this much effort in. You can leave the edges of the plywood, keep it super simple. Just make whatever you think you are comfortable with in your shop. The storage is the most important thing. With everything built, I just put 2 coats of the finish on it and it's so easy. You just wipe it on with a rag and then let it dry. 10 minutes later, wipe it in again and then it cures in about 10 days. I promised I'd show you my mistakes, so let's do that first. The biggest difficulty I found with this was getting the runners to run smoothly. Now the Osmo oil actually helps with this, but the biggest advice I could give you on this is the gap for the runner and the drawer slide in total should not be more than about 1 mil to 2 mil on either side. If you give it space to chatter when it's going in, it will, and it will end up jamming. I have just taken the edges at the end and you can see there right at the end I've just cut off an angle so that there is no sharp point to dig in as well. I cut the grooves exactly the same thickness as the plywood, and so you see here I've had to take off around 1 mil so that it doesn't jam up. The solution will never be seen. A quick one on the sides here. I ran out of wood. Again, no one's going to care that I've used a second piece of wood for something that is not fine furniture. It does a job. Now you saw my problems with the drawers, putting them together. Because we don't have a face on the drawers and it is just the structural bit of the drawer, there's nails down. They don't all go in perfectly. And now for the biggest mistake of all. When I was cutting the bases of the drawers, I cut them into strips off a large piece of plywood. And I measured it once, and that was my first mistake. Ow. Because if you see, the base spans the whole distance in these drawers, looks perfect until, oh, well that's been made out of 3 sheets. That's been made out of 2 sheets. I confess, I measured it wrong. I cut the entire strips and I didn't have any more plywood to go and recut it, and I didn't want to. And I thought to myself, it's a shop project, so I'm not too worried. If you are, maybe measure twice. So now we've got the unit built, what we need to figure out is the promise at the start. Is all of this clutter going to fit into all of those drawers? And if it does, I'll show you the top one. I'm going to show you anyway, because I'm really proud of it. First drawer, this is one not to drop. Screws, all in one place, all in handy little boxes. Put the least popular stuff at the back, the little stuff. Measuring things, gloves, tack cloths, jigs, threaded inserts and the like. Then the first deep drawer has got so much more space in it left. The entire pocket hole drawer. Oh, and this unsung hero of any workshop. If you've used it, you know what I'm talking about. Next one, a random assortment of Forstner bits and anything I need to do some intricate sanding and some spare drills. Fancy stuff for hinges, some thread, key rings, loads and loads of dowels and the Wolfcraft dowel jig. And then a catch-all at the bottom is that if something is more popular and you're reaching down to get it, just move the drawer up. Swap it out with something that you don't use as much. I nearly forgot. This is my favourite bit of this build. It was a space that I didn't know what I was going to use it for until I actually got started, and then I had an idea. Originally, this was just going to be a shelf that pulled out and I could just put things on it. I then decided to take it a step further. All of my sharpening needs all attached to one shelf. So you take the shelf out, move it over to your workbench, hook the drawer front onto the edge of your workbench and clamp it. And then all your sharpening stones are right here, your strops there, your honing guides there, and everything you need. Sharpening compound, a ruler for the ruler trick on magnets, and these come off, so if they're in the wrong place, move them around. You need to replace them, move them. I then put 2 braces on the bottom. This is why you can clamp it to your workbench and have it there whenever you need it. If you hide your stones away, put them in a cupboard, put them somewhere that you can't easily grab them, you are not going to sharpen anywhere near as much as you should. You need to do it before you need to do it. With this, I can just pull it out whenever I need it, sharpen up everything I need, give it a wipe, and then take it back over and pop it straight back out of the way. It is far from a perfect build. It's not a cabinet I'd have in the house. It's something that is too nice for my workshop. It straddles between the two. But what it does is it keeps my junk in one place. It puts my sharpening gear where I need it. There's a space on the top to balance things on. And I quite like looking at it. If you, like me, have a workshop that has got too much junk in it, pick up your tools. Don't be too hard on yourself. Make some mistakes and make some storage for it. I hope you've enjoyed the build. If you have a look at this French cleat system. That is a great way of organising your workshop. There's a load of videos on it. That's probably the best. I'll see you over there.